Hi there, and welcome to part one of the series of 5 webinars produced by Drinkwise Agewell. This is part one of the series, and this will look at an overview of the evidence and need for working specifically with older adults around about the issue of alcohol. These webinars contain lots of learning from the Drinkwise Agewell programme and are split into the following 5 sections to enable you to watch and listen at your leisure. So part one, why consider older adults and services? So this is an overview of the evidence and need for specific services for older adults. Then there's part two, what works in services for older adults? What did we learn about best practice? Part three, the experience. Our experts by experience talk about what was important and supported them. Part four, this looked at women and alcohol, an open and honest discussion about alcohol and being a woman. And then lastly, part five, alcohol and ageing. And this was around about practical tips to think about alcohol in your life. Before we begin to look at the evidence and need for working specifically with older adults and alcohol, I'd like to give you a brief overview of the Drinkwise Agewell programme, which supported people to make healthier choices about alcohol as they age. Drinkwise Agewell was funded by the National Lottery Community Fund and was an evidence-based project that took place across 5 locations in the UK. These 5 locations were chosen for a specific reason to really represent how diverse the population and landscape of the UK is. The 5 locations were Glasgow in Scotland, Devon and Sheffield in England, Clontarf in Wales, and then lastly, the Western Trust in Northern Ireland. Drinkwise Agewell was set up to work specifically with older adults over the age of 50 around about their alcohol use. But it also aimed to challenge attitudes, combat stigma, and reduce alcohol harm in the over 50s to enable them to live longer, healthier lives. An important part of Drinkwise Agewell that it was not an abstinence-based service. We listened carefully to what older adults told us that they needed, and we supported individuals to reach their own goals around about their drinking as part of that holistic model, very much looking at the whole person and what they wanted. Drinkwise Agewell ran operationally from 2015 to 2020, and since March 2020 has now been in that final evidence and legacy phase, where our national legacy coordinators have been delivering online knowledge exchange events to a variety of different services and professionals across the UK to really share that learning and that evidence. The initial year of the programme in 2015 centred on gathering evidence in collaboration with the Substance Misuse and Ageing Research Team at the University of Bedfordshire. The evidence base for a lot of our statistics, and some of these you will hear as part of this webinar, comes from a survey completed by 16,700 adults over the age of 50. This survey specifically looked at assessing drinking behaviour and potential harm from alcohol in later life. This research has continued throughout the programme, and a final contribution analysis and research report is now available through our website, which is www.drinkwiseagewell.org.uk, along with other information, leaflets and resources that really back up the information that will be presented here in these webinars. This webinar series is part of our legacy work, where we aim to share our learning about older adults and alcohol as widely as we possibly can. We hope you take the time to enjoy all 5 parts, and you will now hear more about the evidence and need.
Hello, so I'm going to talk a wee bit about why older adults have specific needs in relation to their alcohol use and what these needs mean for alcohol services. So we have known for some time that alcohol consumption and harm is increasing more in the over 55s than in any other age group. Throughout the countries of the UK, the evidence is that 55 to 64-year-olds drink more on average than any other age and are most likely to exceed the UK drinking guidelines. In fact, at least 20% of the over 50s are drinking at hazardous or harmful levels, which is nearly 5 million people, which actually is the combined population of Northern Ireland and Wales. Recent ONS analysis shows that alcohol-related deaths in the UK are highest in the 55 to 64-year-old age brackets and have increased significantly in the over 65s in the past 20 years. So that's a bit about the current context of alcohol use across the UK. But I want to talk a wee bit more about some of the issues that prevent older adults having their needs met in services. And the most significant issue and important issue is in relation to ageism. There is often a belief across health and social care services that means that older adults do not necessarily get the support and treatment that they need. There's a belief that older adults don't benefit from alcohol treatment, so assumptions that they are too old to make changes, or it's their only pleasure and we can't deprive them of it. There's also a perception that it's young people that have the problem and we need to worry about them and not older adults, which means that very, very often older adults are overlooked. What this ageism does is lead to, so it's a belief that leads to actions that can discriminate against older adults. And we see this through age discrimination. And what that means is that sometimes older adults are not referred for alcohol treatment. So it's not believed that they would benefit from treatment, therefore they're not referred for support. Where resources are sparse, younger adults may be prioritised over older adults for treatment. And older adults with alcohol problems can be referred to services such as care homes rather than alcohol rehab, or older adult social work rather than community alcohol services when they do experience problems with their drinking. So this can cause significant issues for older adults who continue to fall through the net. The other barriers that we see are things like self-stigma. So older adults themselves may be very embarrassed about coming forward for help, so keep their alcohol problems more hidden. Where they are referred to alcohol treatment services, there can be other barriers, such as they may have mobility issues about getting to appointments or transport issues to get there. There may be anxiety about using treatment services. So they may have had a previous bad experience if they've had help previously, but if this is their first time, it can be very intimidating. Very often, alcohol treatment services and substance use treatment services are in more discreet or remote locations. They can be quite hard to get to. They obviously need to respond to the needs of lots of different groups of people. So there can be people that are on methadone scripts, there can be younger people, there could be people coming out of prison, all needing help and support. And for an older adult to come forward for the first time, that can be quite intimidating. As I said, older adults can often experience stigma and shame around seeking help. We talked earlier about the survey that we did at the start of the Drink Wise Age Well programme, and that survey found that over half of people aged over 65 surveyed said people with a drink problem should feel ashamed. So there's a level of stigma in society about older adults and their alcohol use. 1 in 4 people aged over 50 would not actually tell anyone if they had a problem. So again, it can remain very hidden. And what we also found was that 4 in 5 adults over 50 who were at risk from their drinking had never been asked about their alcohol use by family, friends, or health workers. So again, the problem can remain below the radar and the person does not get the help that they need. One of the other issues is that we also see that alcohol can be missed because it has attributed to ageing. So health professionals put symptoms around alcohol use down to ageing rather than the alcohol, or they may lack confidence to ask people about their alcohol use and, be embarrassed about asking this question or are worried about embarrassing the older adults. There is also really low level of awareness around alcohol harm, alcohol levels in an older population. So, for example, the Royal College of Psychiatrists recommend that older adults shouldn't drink more than 11 units per week, although the general guidelines are 14 units per week. And that's due to the process of aging, means that it's harder to metabolize alcohol, but also as we age, we're much more likely to be on lots of different medications. And often, again, these issues can get missed through health professionals. If they are talking to older adults about medication, they may not ask about alcohol and the impact that this may have on the person. What our data also showed us was those people that we assessed in the Drink Wise Age Well programme, 80% of people drink at home alone. This means it's a very hidden problem. People are not out socialising, meeting friends in pubs or restaurants. They're drinking behind closed doors, often on their own, and with that comes increased social isolation. One of the other things we looked at in our survey was the reasons older adults' alcohol use can increase in later life. And the 5 most frequently reported reasons were retirement. 40% cited retirement as a reason that their alcohol use increased. Bereavement, So very often as we get older, we start to lose more and more people around us as they often age alongside us. Loss of sense of purpose, so people that have retired or the children have left home and they've lost some structure to their day. Fewer opportunities to socialise. And worries about money can all be triggers for people to increase their alcohol use in later life. And it's really important that people working in alcohol treatment services recognise these triggers and help to address and support people around these where they can. Also, if you're working in primary care or you're a GP, it's about recognising that if somebody has experienced a bereavement or they've recently become retirement, that it's worth exploring if this has had any impact on their alcohol use. Something else identified not in our survey data, but more from lived experience voice of people using our programme, was that trauma can have a significant impact on alcohol use in later life. So this may be childhood trauma that hadn't been dealt with, or trauma experienced through life, such as the sudden loss of a partner. But a number of people who participated in our programme talked about how they used alcohol use to cope with trauma and to self-medicate against pain caused by trauma. So it's really important that our practice is trauma-informed and we understand the huge impact that this can have on people. So these are some of the risks around older adults, the reasons that their alcohol may increase, and some of the issues around ageism and age discrimination are really important to be mindful of when supporting older adults who need help with their alcohol use.
Thanks for taking the time to listen to part 1 of our webinar. Please move on to part 2 to hear more about what we know works and services for older adults for drinking. You can also find out more information on our website at drinkwiseagewell.org.uk, including details of our alcohol helpline for older adults. This is a free and confidential support for anyone over 50 who's looking for information or support around their alcohol use. If you would like to check if your service is doing the best it can for older adults who are drinking, then please do take a look at our AIMS, which is our Age Inclusive Model Service Toolkit, which will walk you through ensuring your service and support is accessible for all ages and stages in life. It contains lots of helpful tips and information and allows you to rate your own service against checklists and standards that have been created in co-production with older adults.